Hi. All right, guys, let's do this thing. So, I promised in April we were going to bring back Sister Wives, so let's bring back Sister Wives. So, we did the tell all last time, and this starts over again with another interview in New York. Whew, we're doing a lot of interviews with the Browns to start off. If you're new here, hi, I'm Cozy. I like to snark about Sister Wives and other related reality TV shows here on YouTube. I do like to remind you these videos are for entertainment purposes only. These are not facts, they're just opinions about public figures sharing their lives publicly. So, cool? Cool. All right. So, once again, this revolves around yet another interview, actually series of interviews that the Browns did in New York while all the kids are starting public school. And opening up, everyone's in Janelle's kitchen, including Robin's kiddos, which is good to see. And Aurora's really excitedly telling everyone, we're plaguelets. And Cody's like, whoa, you guys aren't plagues. Stop. You're just kids. You're normal kids. And I feel like it's a little weird because in the first episode, Cody's really feeding into the kids calling themselves plaguelets. Everything's plague food, they're plaguelets, all of those things. And so for him to not let Aurora kind of in on the joke feels a little bit odd. So on the couch, he's like, listen, we're just polygamous. We're polygamists. They're just normal everyday kids. We know. It's fine. And also, this couch is so crowded with all five of them on it. You've got you've got Robin, who is sitting in like the corner of the couch being visibly blocked out by Mary's shoulders and Cody's shoulders, not intentionally, but the way that they have to sit, it's just wild. Listen, it means nothing other than corner couches kind of suck and are awkward places to sit for interviews, but it is what they do, and it's just sort of odd. I think it would have been way more comfortable with just one long couch. Also, I think I'm so used to them filming these like interstitial scenes separately now that seeing them all together still kind of throws me for a loop. So they share the kids are going to be starting public school, and Cody says 7 of them have never been to public school ever. Only homeschooling or the homeschool co-op that they're a part of. And so for me, I don't have a problem with homeschooling. One of my children, well, the oldest, he did some homeschooling in his second grade year for various reasons, which worked out really well for him. He actually got a really well-rounded education, and he was able to go and do things to kind of give a lot of history to what he was talking about. We were able to take him to museums or take him actually on a vacation to see some of the historical places that he was talking about, which was really awesome for us. He did elect to go back to brick and mortar school, which also has worked out really well for us. The teachers he's had since then have been really wonderful, so I'm down with that. I also had siblings that did similar things that were able to go and do more during that homeschool time. They did elect to finish out their high school years in brick and mortar school, so I see the benefits of both, and I think that as long as you're making the best choice for your family and your child, there's nothing wrong with the educational choices that we make. So like I said, at the same time, the parents are off to New York. These kids are basically starting school. This is not great timing, in my opinion, because they're talking about all of the things that these kids are going to be now hearing about in school from their friends and various other kids talking about it. Also, they're trying to talk to the kids like, hey, it is going to be super obvious that your siblings are going to be in your class. Yeah, I mean, how are you really going to hide that fact? Y'all have the last name Brown, and most of you look pretty darn alike. Just saying. Also, the state's going to start an investigation soon anyway, so somebody's going to figure it out. But Cody asserts that all of the kids want to go to public school, save one, and they said they would have done it sooner, but they didn't feel like the time was right. Why is the time right now? Listen, I have a couple of theories, and they're just theories. Especially in this section, nothing is factual. Please do not come for me, TLC. I'm just saying what I'm thinking. But my theories are this. It makes sense now because they're public, so the kids wouldn't have to pretend the other kids aren't their siblings. They wouldn't have to lie to teachers. They wouldn't have to pretend anything. 2, I think it could be because of the investigation. They wanted the kids in school where teachers and administrators could clearly see that there were no signs of anything nefarious going on. The children had age-appropriate behaviors, age-appropriate education levels, and they wanted to prevent any accusations that would drag this investigation out any further. And my third theory is they wanted to have the kids in school just simply to have an easier film schedule for the adults, because I know Christine also said that she needed a break, so maybe it was just a good time to let everybody go to school. But Christine starts out this conversation with the kids, and on the couch, Cody says that he'd like to put them in public school as part of their coming out. And all I can see, maybe I've been watching too much Gilded Age lately, but all I can see is this man trying to throw himself some sort of a debutante ball. Like, he is throwing himself a Mrs. Russell-sized party. Just a one-man party in his mind, of course, to let everyone know what he's already let everyone know. If you're not watching The Gilded Age, that reference doesn't make sense. It's on Max. There's only 2 seasons right now. It's amazing. You should try it. So, I can't recommend enough. Honestly, if you're already watching Sister Wives on Max or watching any of these things, give Gilded Age a try. You'll enjoy it. So Janelle's like, listen, we never put our kids in the private school to try and hide from anybody. Things just sort of worked out that way. Okay, that's a weird sentence, but sure. And then she says she's worried about the influences that public school will have on the kids. Listen, I've never lived there, but I have to tell you, if you're from Utah on this channel, y'all have the reputation of basically being like the good, moral, upstanding state of the union, if you will. Most of the rest of the country perceives you as just fine, upstanding Mormons, even if you're not Mormon. It just is what it is. So I don't really think the kids are about to fall in with some sort of criminal element, but if the real concern is the mainstream LDS influence on the kids as they're at school, just say that. You've been very open about saying you don't care what religion they choose. Just say it. Anyway, the adults say that kids are pretty tolerant in this time, and that tolerance is being taught in schools. And whether that's the case or not, bullies will exist. And in my experience, zero tolerance policies for bullying actually haven't been that successful, at least not where I've lived and not in the time that I've been dealing with school systems. So I'm not thinking they're going to have that problem, but they should be aware that that could potentially be the case. Then Cody says that he remembers growing up and being taught the value of civil rights. And Robin looks so confused, like, dude, where are you going with this? And I am with her. For once, I'm with her. Because, Cody, you're very much so conflating two things that are not the same. I'd have followed you if you had quoted the religious freedom aspect of the First Amendment. Like, if you had given me that prohibiting the free exercise thereof clause, I might have been able to be like, okay, I get what you're trying to say. I'd have argued with you, but I get what you're trying to say. That's not where he went with that. And the Civil Rights Act and polygamy are not the same thing. Christine says she feels differently about it because her siblings got picked on a lot for coming from a polygamous family, but no one knew that she came from one. How do they know about your siblings, Christine, but they don't realize that you, someone who looks a lot like them, is their sibling? It's just confusing. I mean, it's possible her siblings had a different last name. We've seen polygamous families where not everyone takes the same last name or gives the kids the same last name. I wasn't there. I don't know. It just seems weird. So Christine's really worried about the kids being teased in school. And realistically, she just doesn't want the children to have any reservations about being able to make friends. And that seems super fair in my opinion. Janelle's just really excited for the kids and their opportunities. So now we get Cody wandering around the house, putting all of his stuff into Mary's living room to pack. I'm sorry. No. Skipped a spot. Sorry. Cody's going around the house to wake up the kids for their first day of school. I skipped this part. And Christine and Aspen have been up since 5 a.m. curling Aspen's hair. It has been nearly an hour and a half. They are nearly done. And I am laughing a little bit right here because I'm like, oh, I have curly hair. I'll never have to do that again. And then I remember the hours and hours and hours I spent straightening my hair stick straight because I thought I was going to look just primo at school. And then you'd have to put your hair into a plastic bag when you took a shower so it would last longer so you didn't do as much damage to your hair. Except the damage really was done because I definitely straightened my hair while it was wet. That early 2000s burnt hair smell still lingers in my brain sometimes. So I feel Aspen here as she's just sitting there, just wanting to be done. But then we get an interesting piece from Janelle where she says that Christine will be home more now since she has Truly. And I remember remember at the time being like, what do you mean she'll be home more? I thought she was home all the time. And I wonder if this is the first hints that we're getting of them telling us that Christine was working this entire time when they hadn't actually said it before. We know that Christina informed us that that was the case while she was pregnant with Truly, that she was working essentially night shift to kind of make ends meet. So I wonder if that's what Janelle was kind of hinting at. But Christine is clearly stressed. She is not used to this routine yet, and breakfast is not cooking fast enough. But Cody comes on in and says, I'm leaving, and then laughs and tells her she needs to drop everything and run to him. I'm sure he thought he was funny, but dude, read the room. You can see she's stressed out. Leave her alone. But then on the couch, Cody says something that makes zero sense. And he's like, well, homeschooling was always a way for the family to be a unit. But then when Robin joined the family, he thought it was a way for them to merge, to have them go to public school. I don't know if Robin just didn't want to homeschool and he wanted everybody doing the same thing, or what the story was. I refer you to my previous theories, but the wives don't actually show any sign of agreeing with him, and I'm really not sure how putting the kids in public school, where they will not be together necessarily, they will be in separate classes, is a way to bring them all together. I don't get it. But at Robin's house, it is just quiet and calm, just serenity, because she's sharing that this is their first day of school, and somehow this one is way more important than any other first day has been, because now they're polygamous children. Robin. No, the first day of school is important because the first day of school is important. Just be honest. Because from talking, your kids had already been in the public school this entire time, which I'm sure factored into the decision on where to send the kids for school this year. And she goes on to say that they've never addressed this with their friends and teachers because they've been in public school this entire time. Listen, I don't know why Robin didn't choose to put her children in the homeschool co-op when they came to Lehigh. They would have only been in the public school from March to May, June. I know around here, school lets out in May. Maybe it's June there. I don't know. But she goes on to say that she has hidden her family's polygamous nature her entire life. Now, listen, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And if you have sources, all the better, because I want to know as much as I can, and I couldn't 100% confirm this. I'm taking this from all the things that we as a community have gleaned over the years and kind of putting this together myself. But it is my understanding that Robin's biological father was not polygamous, and that Alice and Paul didn't begin their relationship until Robin was a preteen. And those wives lived in a different state. One was in Nevada, one was in Utah. It really wouldn't be much to hide in that circumstance. You don't have siblings from the first wife in school with you where you have to pretend that you're not step siblings. Nobody's getting confused, and you can openly talk about your dad because no one's going to know or care about your situation. It really sometimes feels like Robin just wants this like tragic backstory, and she doesn't have it. So she's kind of grabbing from historical precedents to set herself up for something that she maybe didn't have. I mean, I guess I could be wrong. She could have felt like she wasn't allowed to talk about Paul, but all you'd have to say is, yeah, he's not around a ton because he travels for work. Easy as that. I don't know. She's telling us how disconnected she feels having her own home, and she says she loves that Cody has access to all his wives and children at the Lehigh house. Well, almost. And I can't help but feel it's more that she wants to have that constant access to Cody than the other way around. I don't know. Cody says it gives the family a stronger identity. And I'm sure in some ways it does, but I'm also sure after seeing enough polygamous families that in some ways it still makes you feel like you're trapped into this teeny tiny little box where you have to fit in. It's kind of like how we've been rewatching My Five Wives on my channel, and we heard in the very beginning how some of the wives felt like they had to emulate the other wives and sort of hide their own personality to feel like they were fitting in with the group because they live in such tight quarters. So it could be, it could not be. I can't say for sure. Christine is super excited to have updated the kids' emergency medical forms to list her sister wives as other mom rather than just mom's friend. And she's like, this is so extremely liberating. On the flip side, Janelle's like, I'm not changing how I do this. I've always listed them as aunts. I'm just going to keep doing that. And there is a stir on the couch as everyone is ganging up on her. We're not aunts, which weirdly enough is what Cody said. And no, Cody, you're the dad brother, the uncle dad. What are you? Listen, they're spiritual step siblings, Cody and Janelle. So he's the uncle dad. That's what we're going with now. Cody is trying to guilt her and pushing her a little bit, but it is coming off very disingenuous because he didn't join the church until he was 20. So he never had to worry about, as a kid, whether or not he called somebody his mom or his aunt or his uncle or what he called them. But Janelle says that none of it matters because she's just giving permission for the others to take the children out of school, so who cares? At home, it's just Christine and Truly waiting for the kids to get home. And this is such a new experience for her. And she says she is just bored waiting for the kids to get home. And I can imagine going from all that chaos to quiet would be such an overwhelming experience. You wouldn't think so, but for somebody like Christine, who probably doesn't have much time to herself and doesn't really know how to relax or how to take things at a much slower pace, this would be a time for her where she has to learn how to do those things. Because now she has breathing room in the middle of the day where she can get her housework done and sit down and just snuggle Truly without having to worry about the next round of chaos occurring. It's got to be wild. The kids start slowly trickling home, and of course Logan's like, "You got any food?" And she's like, "Yeah, I have the streusel I made, and I have homemade burger buns." And that is the first thing she mentions. And as somebody who has recently had to start baking their own bread and doing all these things for health reasons, medical reasons, I can tell you homemade burger buns would be something to brag about, for sure. I bake 1 to 2 loaves of bread every week to get us through the week, and there is nothing better than some home-baked bread. Oh, I am not regretting my decisions there. But this is always what Christine wanted, just to be a mom. And the kids are coming home and they have various complaints or exciting stories to share from the day, from boring teachers to new friends to being happy to be at the homeschool, the church school. And overall, it seems like everyone had a pretty great day. Before the parents leave for New York, they decide they're going ice blocking. And prior to this show, I had never heard of such a thing. Sitting on a block of ice and sledding down a hill seems like kind of a weird thing to do because that would be pretty cold. And frankly, I don't really like to be that cold. I understand in some places it's more common, and it looks common enough in this locale that you can buy a block of ice that seems to be made for it. I could be wrong about the blocks being specific to the activity, but I mean, why else would you just have blocks of ice sitting sized? I don't know. So I am going to say for sure, I don't think that you have to have high morals to go ice blocking. Yeah, I don't know about it. Sorry, Robin. But I Googled it. And guys, what you need to know is the Wikipedia page for ice blocking specifically references this episode of Sister Wives. Now, it does say that it is attributed specifically to being a regional recreation primarily done in the western side of the United States. And it gives zero mention of Joseph Smith being some sort of pro-ice blocker, even though that's what Cody would have you believe. It does say that ice blocking can be particularly damaging for grass and that a lot of parks have banned it because it is really difficult to maintain the lawn. So commercially available summertime sleds are out there for you to get the exact same effect. So I guess if you want to go ice blocking, check your local guidelines before you go. On the couch, they discuss how ice blocking keeps teenagers from getting into trouble. I'm not really sure that's true, because I think you can get into plenty of trouble just with the concussion Hunter nearly gave himself when he fell off of the block of ice. And Robin says nothing can be simple with Cody. It has to be a competition. How many people can we line up? What can we do here? Blah, blah, blah. Robin, competition keeps everything fun. It keeps people engaged when they otherwise would start to fall off, especially if they're waiting for their turn. When you make something into a little bit of a competition, people want to continue to participate because there's something so freeing about creating a personal best or being the one who comes out on top. They close out the activity with a picnic, and it looks like overall it's a really nice September day that they're able to spend together. So, Cody is getting very serious while packing and shares that going public is absolutely nerve-wracking. He's like, "Listen, this community is so closed and secretive. America views us as a threat." Cody, I've lived here my entire life, and I don't think I've ever considered any polygamist to be an existential threat to the country. Not even knowing that Joseph Smith himself ran for president at one point. He is hoping that going public will make the community more open. It hasn't, not really. It's just made a lot of money for TLC in the long run. So I don't think you've achieved that specific goal. Robin seems to echo Cody's seriousness, but Christine says she thinks that people are good and that they'll be more open-minded and receptive than they're assuming. I don't know if that's really played out that well all these years later, but I do know that I feel like there are more people against religious polygamy now than there ever were at the beginning of the show. I remember talking to people about it at the time, and they would be like, listen, they seem like they're a decent family, and maybe live and let live. It might not be 100% bad. But also, in that time, we've really seen the boom of YouTube, where people have been able to come out and tell their stories about leaving these polygamous sects, whether it's the Warren Jeff side, or the AUB, or the Kingston clan, or whatever group they're in, whatever group outside of the FLDS that they are in, they've been able to share their stories. So I think that not only did Sister Wives kind of open the door for people to feel comfortable sharing what they see, what they hear, what they've experienced, but also just the rise of YouTube has given way for people to talk about their experiences in a way that we've never been able to connect with people quite like this before. So the parents are off to New York, and Cody cannot find anything that he needs. Leave it to Cody to not pack until right before you leave. Listen, I go anywhere, we are packed days ahead of time, and I am still panicking that I have forgotten everything important. But everyone's like, listen, it's kind of scary, it's really nerve-wracking, and it would be. I've never been on television quite like that, but I do talk to you guys pretty often, and just doing this can be very nerve-wracking. You would not believe how many times I record one of these and then have to delete it because I am just utterly offended by the sound of my own voice. I don't actually like the sound of my own voice, so that's probably why. But there are just moments where I'm like, oh, no, nobody wants to hear you talk. Delete that, stop talking. So, I noticed Cody says something really important here, though. He says, tomorrow I will be all over the news. Not we, but I. It bugs me, because the wives will be there too, and will be affected from whatever fallout seems to come from the public image. On the couch, Janelle's like, the anticipation is probably so much worse than what the public will think. Oh, that is almost always true. The outcome of the interviews at the time, from memory, like I said, was much more sympathetic to the family and to families in general who choose to live polygamy. That is not the feeling that I'm getting from the modern day. But I remember this show sort of softening hearts around this whole conversation because people truly believed that the family was being honest and that they were really being truthful when they were saying they just wanted to stay together and raise their family. Cody justifies packing in Mary's living room by saying he keeps things everywhere, but no one feels sad for him. Correct, sir. Keep better track of your things. I have ADHD, but I still know that this hair clip in my hair was previously clipped to the shower curtain rod because I forgot to take it out of my hair when I got into the shower, but I knew that I would remember that it was there because if I took it off and put it anywhere else, I was going to lose it. Get good, Cody. I don't know. But the grandmas are here to watch the kiddos, and it is so nice to see these ladies, because seeing them actually reminds me how much I miss my own grandmas, and how we would get to stay with them when my parents went to various places, whether it was on a vacation that they had gotten to go on to, or whether it was just something that they needed to do, a date night out, whatever. We would get to go and stay with them. Or like how Janelle's kids go to the ranch in the summer. My grandparents had a not working farm. There were just 1 to 2 horses on it at any given period. But we would get to go and hang out with my aunt and uncle. And they're just a couple years older than I am. So it was really exciting to go and ride horses and swim in the pond and play in the barn with somebody who was my peer. And Grandma Cheryl's there and Grandma Annie. And Cody asks on the couch, is my mom coming? Now, he'd look like a doofus if this was filmed in real time, but it was filmed months later. So it just looks like he's trying to be really funny, and it isn't. You should know who is coming to watch your children. Christine is struggling with leaving Truly at home. The poor baby's teething, and Christine is so thankful her mom is coming, because it would be too much for the girls to handle. Listen, it would definitely be too much for the girls to handle, but I think, honestly, Christine is just so happy that her mom is coming, because she feels so much better leaving her tiny baby with her own mother. I think that's reasonable. While packing, the music changes to somber. Let me put on my somber voice. And Cody admits he's always wanted to be more open about his lifestyle. He said he's so nervous because this is unusual and something different from societal norms. Cody, you converted in your 20s and you haven't been exceptionally quiet about it that we've been able to see. So I'm genuinely starting to think that Cody is living this life not so much out of religious conviction, but out of what kind of attention it can garner for him. I think he really just enjoys the shock value of telling people, I have X number of wives, and seeing the look go over their face. I want to believe he originally chose this out of some sort of faith and belief system that were deeply held, but it doesn't feel that way when he talks like this. Also, we're super deep into Cody's purple shirt phase because that is all he is putting in this suitcase. Robin says after being so secretive about her life and family, she thinks it's liberating and freeing to finally say it out loud. But scary. Robin, you were never in a polygamous relationship before this television show aired. You have literally never hidden it ever. Once again, even your mother's relationship sort of barely qualifies because you were in different states and no one knew or cared. Gosh, goodness gracious, there were so many things that she could have said, but Robin has to make things 1,000 times harder than they actually are. Just so you know, her life has been really difficult. I would much rather hear from Mary or Christine, who did grow up in actual polygamous families who would have had to hide familiar relationships in the same town or city. I am suddenly remembering, though, that Mary is going to go on to say her mother moved them from California to Utah to pursue polygamy, and I have to ask why. Why would you move to the most polygamy-unfriendly state in the Union? On purpose? I don't know, watching all these Sister Wives shows, it's starting to feel like there's, people purposefully want to be a thorn in the side of Utah. I don't know. But in the bathroom, Robin says that there's a lot of bad media about polygamy because not everyone has child brides or commits fraud. And while that may be true, the problem is that a lot of the churches have this in their doctrine. I'm sorry, some groups specifically call for bleeding the beast. And that is actually a part of the AUB doctrine from what I understand. I've never been a member. It is possible I am wrong about this. But as I'm watching, it is striking me. Robin's talking. Her mom didn't come. Who's watching Robin's kids? I'll give you 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. McKelty. 13, 14-year-old McKelty. So I also have to ask why Robin is curling her hair to go sit on a plane because Janelle's messy ponytail makes way much more sense for travel. Janelle's clearly nervous about letting the whole world really see them because she's talking to the kids. She's like, I have to go, and just trying to get some last minute feelings of clarity. Robin's like, this was my first time in New York City, and it's huge and noisy and overwhelming. And I personally have never had a single ounce of interest in going to New York City. I don't think there's anything there that I would actually really desire to see. I definitely prefer a quieter environment. If you drop me in the mountains over a city any day of the week, I'll be happy. Frankly, I don't live that far from a city that does the off-Broadway productions. I have the ability to go to the theater. I have the ability to go all sorts of different, much quieter places and experience a lot of things. I'm just not into New York City. I know some people are. I'm not it. But Cody is telling us how Robin was just so slack-jawed, staring at everything. And Robin demonstrates that for us. That was helpful, I guess. Cody's like, listen, New York was so exciting. And the wives were like, yeah, it was pretty cool. And Mary says the Today Show was such a surreal experience. They were on set for about 3 hours. And Christine was amazed that they actually would count down the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before they would, kind of point to them and be like, you're on air. The family, I guess, was showed in between segments as lead-ins to commercial breaks. You've seen the Today Show before where they show you a thing and they're like, come on back, we're going to talk to blah, blah, blah. But that's usually toward the end of the show, so that's constantly a draw for you. Mary recounts that there was a lot of sitting and waiting, and she really needed to use the restroom. And no sooner did she get in there than they are already pounding on the door. You need to come back, you're about to be on. So she ended up doing the entire interview with her pants unzipped. Poor thing. I don't know if I would ever admit that to anybody. Honestly, I think I would just never tell that story ever. But you know what? Mary can tell it, and I just sort of giggle. Christine shares that Meredith came over and shook her hand and asked how Truly was doing. And it was so wild. She's like, I've seen you on TV, and now you're asking me how my baby is doing? It was hilarious. Cody says he didn't know how to analyze himself, and I feel like that's just a good summary of the show. He's like, I couldn't let myself think yet because I just jumped out of a plane and hadn't opened my parachute. And Robin's like, there was so much pressure and it was really intense. So we're showing the interview, and the very best moment is when Meredith asks Cody, why'd you choose polygamy? And he can't answer. He just keeps saying over and over again. And the wives make fun of him on the couch, reminding him, your name's Cody. And he's like, my brain wouldn't connect with my mouth. Another apt summary of the show. I can close up the channel entirely. I will never be able to sum up the show as well as Cody has. He can't analyze himself, and his brain doesn't connect to his mouth. Boom. Done. But he does say it was like, Janelle, you know the answer. Christine, can you tell me why I'm doing this? He says, no amount of coffee will help you. And Meredith looks you in the eyes and says, why are you a polygamist? Now, maybe I'm cut from a different cloth, but if somebody looked me dead in the eyes and asked me about a pretty basic tenet of my faith, I'm fairly confident I could give a succinct answer. Just saying. It's something I deeply hold in my soul, so I don't think that it would be that hard to answer it. He finally spits out, oh shoot, it was faith-based. It was a faith belief, I followed through with it, and this is where it landed. Okay. Robin says she just became a public polygamist. Mary says that what they're doing is a good thing because they are a solid family. It's good to know that it's good to show people that polygamists can have a good, solid family. So they do a few more interviews and they decide they want to go to Central Park. Now, it definitely helped that they had professionally done hair and makeup before they decided to go and take pictures in Central Park. But I mean, why waste a good hair day? I certainly wouldn't want to. So they're trying to figure out the perfect spot, and Mary is posing everyone for pictures. And Mary and Christine are taking the pictures. So Cody shares that Mary's a photographer, so Christine and Janelle have some very lovely photos. Christine is a creative, not a photographer, so Mary's pictures are not as good. But Christine likes to capture the background of the image to give you a reminder of what you were doing at that time. Mary prefers to capture the people and the faces in a much closer, tighter vibe. Cody teases that Mary's pictures are often sabotaged by Christine, but the ladies have discussed their differences that they have in preferring people versus background, and they've kind of come to an agreement and understand each other. Cody says they do need to get back home to the kids, though. Robin tells us that being open in New York City is very different than being open in Utah, because folks back home may not accept them. They get home, and Madison's already been on the internet reading, and Cody doesn't think that blogs are safe to read. Blogs in general are not really a great place to always get factual information. Heck, I wouldn't even tell you to come here for the best and most up-to-date news. Number one, because that's not what I do here. I mean, I could, but I have a really hard time not injecting my opinion into everything, so it would just devolve into political commentary at that point. Just saying. Janelle had wanted to be there as a buffer because she sort of wanted to monitor what information they were getting. And Maddie's like, listen, we started with blogs, and one lady was really nice, but then they were getting negative, so we moved on. And Cody's like, I think that reading opinions that are not positive can really get under your skin, and it's not great for a teenager. I agree that can become really overwhelming very quickly for a teen or young adult, and they often will need someone to help them navigate how to handle that negativity, because if you are just constantly being fed negative, it is going to be very hard for you to learn how to positively integrate actual criticism versus throwing away the things that just hurt you. And so if you don't have someone there who can love you and guide you and show you the way to discern from criticism versus someone being a jerk, you're really going to have a hard time. Janelle's like, blogs have no accountability. And yeah, 2010, 2011 was a different time online, so there probably wasn't nearly the accountability that people try to take today. But she goes on to say, I don't care what you have to say. Just say it to my face. Don't ask for that. You do not want that. No one wants a room full of people coming up to them and telling them to their face the things that they might criticize. I'm sorry. I know that you might think you are strong enough to hear somebody say, Cody's a doofus, or polygamy is wrong, or here is a biblical refutation of what you believe in. You don't want that to your face. I promise you. You would be much happier if it was something that you could turn off and tune out. 100%. I do the same thing with my comments. If I start seeing things that are really going to hurt me as a person, tune out, turn off. I will take all of your criticisms, anybody who has them, in stride and try to implement them into my channel, into my life. But if you're just going to sit there and tell me that I'm an ugly hag, I'm going to ignore you. End of discussion. Christine reminds us that there's a lot of fear in their culture and that these are known fears. They know what could happen. They know what to expect to be afraid of. But this fear is new and unknown because no one really steps out of the bounds and says, hey, we're polygamists. We're going to be here. You do what you need to do. And she says all they can do now is hope that people think they're okay or find some way to connect with them as a family. A week later, the investigation is launched into the Browns, and there is a lot of explaining that they're being investigated for bigamy. And if that is actual fact, the Browns technically were not bigamists, so they probably didn't have much to fear. The letter of the law that they really should have been worried about was the cohabitation. I don't think that that's considered the same statute as bigamy in Utah because that wouldn't make much sense. It was fairly well established precedent at that point that people were not really being prosecuted except where other cases of fraud were found. So overall, this was sort of overblown for the show, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it's easy to look back now and say that this whole thing was really unnecessary and contributed a lot of unhealthy stress to this family. If I understand things correctly, the biggest issue would be that you can't profit off of breaking the law like this. Ergo, they wouldn't have been able to be paid for the show, and that would have been a huge loss for the family. So moving was their best option to get a paycheck. I could easily be wrong about this point. I just remember people going back and forth when the investigation was announced, and people were kind of looking deeply into whether or not this was real. That there was a big point of contention in the fan base over whether or not it was a real investigation and there were going to be real consequences, or if they just escaped to get a paycheck because they knew they couldn't be paid under Utah statute. So I'm not sure exactly what they're working on, but Robin's at Christine's house with a laptop and paperwork, and there is press filming the house. And Christine recounts that it was so freaky to just have them pop up on the lawn all of a sudden and feeling unsafe with them filming and photographing the kids coming home from school. I agree 100%. Do not try to film or photograph my children getting off the bus. I would raise actual hell. I would. Not gonna lie. So when Mary's plan to divert their attention comes up, I'm like, you go, girl. Do what you gotta do. So she grabs a couple of the older kids, jumps in the car, and they are claiming they're off to grandma's. They are taking them on a wild goose chase, which is a great plan. So the reporter follows them, the kids get off the bus safely, and then Christine and Mary are giggling about how having sister wives really saved the day. That's not very relatable because, in all honesty, you wouldn't have had this problem if you didn't tell everyone you had sister wives. It's kind of a problem that solved itself in some ways, shapes, or forms. I'm not sure. Christine's really worried, though, that Cody is bearing the brunt of everything. And Cody's like, you spent your whole life trying to be a good person. And then you turn around and there's this investigation. It's not like you're doing this out of disrespect for the law, but out of religious obligation. But Cody, this is how choosing to break the law works. I'm sure it's an unpopular opinion, but sir, you knew, and you knew it would be worse in Utah than anywhere else. But you left Wyoming and came here. You knew what you were asking for by going on television. I cannot feel sympathy for this suddenly an investigation shtick, because there were plenty of moments that you could have made different choices that wouldn't have led you here, and there were plenty of moments where you could have said, all right, we're going to get through this, instead of just causing a lot of stress and panic. So Christine feels like this is the appropriate time to give the kids a safety lesson, and Cody reminds them, everyone knows your name, but that does not mean they know you. And Robin's like, we are taking such a risk for our kids, but in the long run, this is going to be good for them. I really don't know if it was. The family had opportunity and financial gains that they wouldn't have otherwise had, let's be honest. They were able to experience the world and create paths for themselves that a more closed community would never have afforded them. But in the end, the family still fractured. They still fell apart. Robin says she doesn't think that anything worth achieving comes without adversary. She means adversity, but I feel like there's a little bit of an accidental foreshadow in that us versus them mentality that comes later down the line. In the safety talk, the kids bring up the investigation, and Mary tells them it doesn't mean Cody is going to jail, because someone's asked Maddie if that's going to be the case, so people are definitely chattering. And Mary says she is doing a lot of thinking about whether or not she would have done this again. If she was afforded the opportunity to go back and make the choice, would she choose to do this again? And she would. She says even with all the scary potentials, even with the fear of losing her family, she would still do this. She's terrified of that idea, but she would take the chance if it meant changing the future. Janelle says she would choose it again, as would Robin. But Christine, the lone dissent, really doesn't know if she would. And I think that Christine is bearing the brunt of the stress, if I'm being honest. So that was season 2, episode 1, talking about the interviews and what it was like to come back and have everyone know who they were. I can't imagine that. This channel is relatively small. If it blew up tomorrow and suddenly everybody felt like they knew who I was, I would be in panic. There's always people who are going to talk about you, and they're going to talk about you in a way that isn't necessarily the most polite, the most friendly, the most helpful. Because sometimes people who don't even know you just want to be involved, and people who do know you know that drama sells. So it's a sad fact of the matter that if you open yourself up to this, you're going to get criticism. You're going to get people who want to say things that aren't necessarily true, kind, or helpful. You just have to learn how to navigate it, and you have to have a really good support system to get through all of it. So it is my genuine hope that after everything that's happened, the Brown family can be that support system for one another, because 18 seasons of a show and losing Garrison means that they are going to need each other now more than ever. And it is my hope and prayer that they will be able to do that. So that's all I have for this time. I'm sorry about all the little noises in the background. Mr. Graham is asleep in his crate. It was a stressful day. The kids and the dog were not exceptionally well behaved. So when he fell asleep, I felt like it's best to let him lie. So he's taken a good rest. I'm really excited to be back to all of this with you guys. I'm hoping that we can look at this through a lens of trying to understand where all of this went wrong. This was a show that we all watched at some point and probably all felt a connection to. So I'd really like to kind of look at this with new, fresh, and open eyes and talk about some of the things that maybe we've never gotten to talk about before. So I'm really excited about it. I did just put up another My 5 Wives. I have 2 Seeking Sister Wife that will be going up for you guys because, well, I maybe didn't watch both episodes until this week. We just had a lot of stuff going on. So there's that. I really hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you have anything that you think will be helpful, I would love to hear it. If you have sources for anything, that would be amazing too, because I'm trying to do my best to find out as much as I can. It doesn't always pan out. So I can't wait to hear from you guys. I will check in with you real soon. Bye!